Welcome back to Blue Collar Sports, everyone. It's just after 3 o'clock, which means we are gearing up for hour number 2 of today's show. You're listening to Blue Collar Sports. We run from 2 to 4 p.m. every Tuesday, Thursday in the afternoon down here in the Pulse Radio studio at Boise State University. We are getting ready for a great hour number 2. Hour number 1 was great. Talked a lot of hoops, argued about LeBron, which is what we do best. Had lots of that, and of course talked the big Bryce Harper news with him getting introduced. And had some college basketball news as well. But now we're switching gears and going to a different sport.
Absolutely. It's been a great show so far. A lot of great stuff. Now we're going to get to another thing we talked about last Thursday that was coming on this weekend. That is the NFL Combine. Always a great time. I didn't get to see as much this year as I usually get to, but it's going to be great stuff. The Combine had a lot of great players that wanted to see perform. We gave our list last week of what players we wanted to see have a big-time Combine, what performances we want to see. We talked about the defensive line, how dominant that squad is, and which quarterbacks we want to see. And I think there's some notable names that really took over the Combine this year, and I think really improved their draft stock, and I'm ready to talk about them.
Yeah, Combine, it's interesting. I remember as a kid when I've always been a big sports fan since I was a kid, but I feel like the Combine gets more and more popular every year in terms of just a popularity standpoint with people tuning in, the importance of it. I think it's really starting to grow into this big thing. I never really saw that. And it surprised me. It's just kind of one day for these guys to showcase what they got. So I don't really law into the Combine, but it definitely can be telling them this year there was a lot of big-time performances this year and a lot of big-time disappointments. A couple takeaways I had that I want to talk about is this defensive class sold themselves on this Combine weekend. I knew it was a defensive class heavy draft coming into it. I knew there would be a lot of defensive names go first, but I still didn't know how good they were. Their Combines, Josh Allen is a name that really stood out for me in Kentucky. Yes. He had a big time. He ran a 4.63 40. I'll get to more on him and specific players coming up. But this defense class in general, especially the linebackers and the edge rushers and the D linemen, they sold themselves to me. That was my first takeaway.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And for what they do is the 40-yard dash. I think is the most important aspect of this whole thing. And the defensive players, I think, really improved a lot of their draft stock and made their names noticeable. Like you said, Josh Allen had a big-time 40-yarder, and so did Nick Bosa. He had a 4.79, and Quinn Williams, 4.83, I thought was fantastic.
Over
and
300 pounds.
Greedy Williams is my favorite defensive back. He ran a 4.37, which is impressive, absolutely. He really upped it up. And for the offensive players, we're going to talk about him a little bit more, but DK Metcalf, 4.33 seconds, and Justice Hill was the fastest running back at 4.4. So two impressive offensive guys in the 40-yard for there, but I think you were absolutely right. The defensive players took over the Combine and really showed that this is one of the best defensive classes I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, definitely a deep defensive class. They're going to be fun to watch. Another big takeaway I had, a position that disappointed me was the running backs. I was disappointed. Obviously, Josh Jacobs from Alabama, he was out. He did not partake in these events, but Justice Hill stepped up. I thought he won this Combine for the running backs. Shout out to Alexander Masson as well. He had a good Combine, our Boise State guy. But the running backs in general, I don't think this is a very good running back class. I don't think it's very deep.
It's not.
But the other side of that, the receivers showed up at the Combine. There was a lot, like say, DJ Metcalf. We could talk about him for an entire segment, how dominant his Combine was. But there was a lot. Paris Campbell, definitely another guy for me to look at. Ohio State, I was sold on him. And Miles Boykin, the receiver from Notre Dame, had a big-time Combine as well. These guys could play. I'm not a huge fan of the wide receiver position in general, especially drafting them up early. But I think there's a lot of guys in this class that could play.
Yeah, for me, obviously it was the defensive guys that really showed out. But I have three offensive players that really improved their stock for me. And for me, my first one is Dwayne Haskins, quarterback of Ohio State. Wasn't too big on really any of the quarterbacks this year. I do like Kyler Murray. He did not participate in any of the quarterback drills.
But he might have won the weekend.
He will in the pro day. You'll have more on that. Dwayne Haskins, though, I felt he really showed his arm strength. I know is fantastic, but he's really smart. He can win the room. He can win players over, and he knows what to do. So I think Haskins, he's got the build. He's got the body and the arm strength. I think he'd be a top performer, and I like to see him in a team like the New York Giants, who already got strong receivers. They got a running back like Saquon Barkley. He could really air it out and let these guys attack with all the weapons he has. And then you talked a little bit about DK Metcalf as well. I thought he won the combine, especially as a wide receiver. Absolutely, his numbers jump out of the roof, but 1.6% body fat, that's a little dangerous to me. I'm a little worried, honestly. He needs to get that up a little bit. But we've seen wide receivers really have a strong combine and get drafted way too high. We saw that with John Ross in Cincinnati. I'm afraid the team might do that again this time with DK. I think he'll end up being maybe the best receiver in this class. I do like N'Keal Harry as well from Arizona State. But
he had a good weekend.
I'm afraid a team like in the top 10 is going to draft this guy, and he's going to have a nice career, but that's just way too high to draft a wide receiver. So I don't want to see that happen. I'm afraid fans and teams are going to jump at this too much and just see how great he did at a combine and not really look at the tape and what he did in college. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And a tight end, Noah Fant.
Yeah,
I'm a really big fan of him from Iowa. I think he's going to be fantastic. He can catch the ball. He can block. He really impressed us at the combine. He had a great performance in the drills and all the activities.
Yeah, he was a big winner for me. Noah Fant, I think he solidified himself as a first-round draft pick. I think by far and away the number one tight end in this class. And tight ends are starting to gain more and more of a role in the NFLs, not just from a blocking perspective, but look at receiving. Zach Ertz had a huge year. Broke the record, I think, for most receptions for a tight end in history of a regular season. Travis Kelce, obviously big time, and of course Rob Gronkowski. Those are three big-time names on three teams that are in the playoffs. Yeah. Two of the past Super Bowl winners, and the Chiefs are right there as well. So they definitely play a major role. I think he's the guy that's going to go round one. Another guy that stood out to me, edge rusher Montez Sweat from Mississippi State. I think this guy, if it was another year, could be the top edge rushing prospect in the year. But, I mean, of course, this year is deep with Bosa and Josh Allen. But this is the guy, great combine. I think he jumped into the radar. One of the top guys. Another guy, linebacker Devin White from LSU. I thought Devin White had a great combine. Losers for me, though, and it kills me to say because I'm still huge on this guy. But that's cornerback. I thought Greedy Williams had a rough weekend. His 40 time was good. It was a very up and down weekend.
Yeah.
But he had a great 40 time. But the individual drills, he struggled. He's not very agile. He's quick, but he's not very agile, if that makes sense. He doesn't. And as a corner, you definitely got to be agile. And I thought Byron Murphy was another corner that also struggled this weekend.
He struggled in the activities like the 40-yard dash, but I thought in the drills themselves, I thought he was very impressive. Maybe the best ball skills and talent in that aspect. So I think with the game itself, Byron Murphy really did well in that category.
Yeah, I think Byron Murphy and Greedy Williams are probably opposites in terms of corner. Greedy Williams is athletic, he's fast. Byron Murphy isn't the fastest, he's not the biggest guy, but he's a ball hawk. And Greedy Williams, I still need to see more from him in terms of being a ball hawk. And that's what I didn't see at the combine. The loser for me, Daniel Jones from Duke. Big things. The biggest question mark he's had is his arm strength, and he's struggled on his deep passes. But a big winner for me was Dwayne Haskins. Like you said, I think Dwayne Haskins to New York makes a lot of sense. Yes. The Jets, of course. Or not the Jets, the Giants, not the Jets, of course.
They got Sammy.
But Dwayne Haskins, that fit makes a lot of sense. Everyone right now is talking about Kyler Murray going number one. We talked about on Thursday. I'm not a big fan of that take. You talk about DK Metcalf and people selling it just on the excitement and from a fan's perspective. I'm worried the same thing's going to start to happen with Kyler Murray. It seems to happen a lot as you get farther along into the draft process. But I think Dwayne Haskins, for me, is my top quarterback. His arm strength, his accuracy was definitely on display at the combine. Of course, he's got a much bigger build than Kyler Murray. But I'm a big fan of Haskins. I think the fit in the Giants makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm not completely sold on any of the quarterbacks. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of any of them. But I think Haskins, if he's in a system like the Giants, complete sense. He could not even have to play this year. He could sit behind Eli and really learn from him and then take over next year because he's got a lot of great weapons around him. And then Kyler Murray, I think, like we talked about last week, that was our debate. I do think he will be the number one pick because a team like Arizona is the only place that they could really utilize his skill set. Anywhere else, I don't see it happening. The Cardinals have a terrible offensive line. You need a quarterback who can move, get out of the pocket. That's Kyler Murray. They got Josh Rosen, who's gotten beat up over the past couple of years, who's not going to be able to move with their bad O-line. So I think what they're going to do, Cliff Kingsbury, he knows he's got 3 or 4 years to win. If not, he's out of the job. He's going back to college. He needs his players. He needs his squad, and he needs a player like Kyler Murray. And he has to be all in on this guy. And this building is split right now on Josh Rosen. So if he wants to make sure that the Cardinals building is 100% on the guy. That's going to be Kyler Murray. So Cliff Kingsbury, he wants to win now. He needs to keep this job, and that's going to be drafting Kyler Murray. And I think they're going to trade Josh Rosen. Teams that keep popping to my mind that I could see them drafting a quarterback in the draft in the first round would be a team like Miami and a team like the Washington Redskins who need a quarterback.
Yeah,
Alex Smith is out. I think Rosen makes a lot of sense over there as well as Miami Dolphins. So I think that's what Arizona's going to do. But I do wish Kyler Murray participated in these drills. I want to see the top players compete against the top, not only on the pro day. So unfortunate to see them, but I know a lot of teams got to interview him in the interview stage and see his testing results and everything else.
Yeah, a lot of question marks still, but definitely a lot of answers from this past weekend. One destination I thought was going to be big on drafting quarterback was Jacksonville, but there is news this week that they are expected to sign quarterback Nick Foles. Of course, touchdown Nick in the playoffs. Won a Super Bowl, of course, Super Bowl MVP 2 years ago. Do you like this fit? Does this make sense to you?
It makes complete sense. They need a quarterback who can do a little bit of everything, but not. They know they could get somebody better one day, but they need someone better. Blake Bortles right now. That's Nick Foles. They got weapons. They got Leonard Fournette. They got a very decent O-line. They got their defense is still absolutely fantastic. So they need a quarterback who could do a little bit of everything, be a leader, and get the ball down the field. That's Nick Foles. And so he knows how to win. He could really help this Jacksonville team who needs a guy in that locker room right now. And I don't think they're going to be as good as they were a couple years ago, but I still think they could have a fighting chance for the playoffs.
AFC South is sure getting tough. Colts are going to be good next year. Texans, of course, are going to be good as well. Titans are getting better, and now Jaguars might jump back into the picture. For me, though, this signing kind of reminds me way too much of the Case Keenum signing last year in Denver. He's coming off a couple. I like Nick Foles, but he's coming off just a couple big-time postseason runs. But I still see him. I think the best fit for him is still Philly. I mean, you never know when you get an opportunity. Carson Wentz is kind of proven to be unreliable as of late in terms of injury. So I thought that made a lot of sense. And Jacksonville, they're built a lot like Denver. They're built defense heavy, run game first. And so this kind of looks like, I don't see them as a playoff team yet, but I think they can get back into the picture. I think he's definitely an improvement for Blake Bortles, so it definitely gives them more of an opportunity. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think they're not going to be all in, just like Denver's not all in on Joe Flacco. It's going to be a couple years. It's a short-term deal. They're going to still look for their future quarterback, and they know that's not going to be Blake Bortles, so they're going to try and move on from him. So I'm glad that Philadelphia, though, decided that it was best for the team and best for Nick Foles himself to not trade him, but let him go. And I'm glad to see Nick Foles go to a team where he could be the guy now, and that's Jacksonville.
And, of course, more big-time news in the NFL. Antonio Brown, that saga continues. He has yet to be traded, but in an interview on the shop with LeBron James, called out Ben Roethlisberger for never taking credit or never taking any of the blame and always blaming it on Antonio Brown. He had some pretty harsh words to say about Ben Roethlisberger. What are your thoughts on Antonio Brown? This situation continues to get worse. Yeah,
Antonio Brown, I'm out on him. I'm more on Big Ben's side. He's a Hall of Famer to me. Big Ben is. Antonio Brown, he's a nice player. You got drafted 6th round, and now you're acting like you're big time. You know he's a great receiver, but I think he's doing a little too much for himself. He's going to wind up on a team that needs him but doesn't really want him, I'd say. So Antonio Brown, he needs to get out of Pittsburgh. They need to move on from him. Just it's too big of a personality that I want in my locker room.
Yeah, a couple of favorites have emerged. I know the Redskins have emerged. The Titans are in discussions as well. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. If he goes to the Redskins, there's going to be a fight every day in practice with him and Josh Norman lining up opposite of each other. That's a disaster waiting to happen. But yeah, I'm ready to move on from this whole Antonio Brown situation. It just continues to drag out and it continues to get worse. Hopefully we'll have news by Thursday if something happens there.
Absolutely. For me, I'd like to see him in a place like Tennessee. He's a little bit more buttoned up. They have a quarterback who could lead like Marcus Mariota. Maybe it will fit his personality a little bit better. And Tennessee needs a weapon like Antonio Brown, so I think that makes the most sense.
You are listening to Blue Collar Sports. We're about to head off to break real quick before we enter segment number 5, and that's going to be a great segment. I'll save the surprise for you coming up, but it's going to be fun. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.